Good morning. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word. I'm Barry Bryson. We're continuing our study of 2 Peter, and we're going to read verses 10 through 16 today. We are continuing in chapter 2 with a discussion of the false teachers that they are going to face and already facing. And there are certain characteristics about false prophets, false teachers, that will become evident. And he's sharing those characteristics as opposed to naming the falsehood and then refuting it. This is much more useful to them and to us in the long run, because by their fruits you will know them. When we see certain characteristics, we know to be suspicious and to question. He says, but these, verse 12, I'm going to read 12 through 16, but these, like unreasoning animals, born as creatures of instinct to be captured and killed, reviling where they have no knowledge, will in the destruction of those creatures also be destroyed, suffering wrong as the wages of doing wrong. They count it a pleasure to revel in the daytime. They are stains and blemishes, reveling in their deceptions as they carouse with you, having eyes full of adultery that never cease from sin, enticing unstable souls, having a heart trained in greed, accursed children, forsaking the right way, they have gone astray, having followed the way of Balaam, the son of Beor, who loved the wages of unrighteousness. But he received a rebuke for his own transgression, for a dumb donkey, speaking with the voice of a man, restrained the madness of the prophet. It's a tight little package of thought, verses 12 through 16, which begins and ends with unreasoning animals and dumb animals. The philosophical school of the Stoics, particularly that school of thought that starts with Epictetus and continues on through Marcus Aurelius, really did arrive in the 1st and 2nd centuries AD at many of the same ideas, notions, values, let me say the word values that are expressed in the New Testament. It is a testimony to the goodness in us that when we are self-aware and we actually stop and think, reflect on history, reflect on the way the world is, reflect on the place of humans in the world, that we can arrive, apart from having the Old Testament, the Ten Commandments, the story of creation, we can arrive at very much those very ideas, those very notions. It's one of the reasons that Christianity spread so quickly. One of the reasons, not the only reason, but one of the reasons Christianity spread so quickly is that. You know, the Neoplatonism, the Stoicism that was prevalent in forming the culture at the time, the part of the culture that was thoughtful, the part of the culture that was self-aware, that really considered notions about integrity and values and how we should live our lives. They were arriving at some of the same notions that Jesus himself is teaching. And one of those notions is that we are self-aware, and that makes us responsible for our actions. And there was a great emphasis on compare and contrast to animals. Animals are the way nature made them, but they're not given the self-awareness that humans are. They don't have in them the soul. The way humans have the soul, we have a soul in us. And therefore, they are creatures of instinct. Now, we know that some animals can learn, they use tools, and they may have a level of self-awareness, but they don't have in them the breath of God, not the way we do. And so you cannot apply a notion of ethics to animals the way you can to human beings, because we are self-aware. And we have in us the breath of God. Now, the Stoics were teaching this, and this is a biblical concept. And he's saying that these false teachers are basically, they have turned their backs on their self-awareness, on their mind, on their souls, and they are living based upon their impulses in their limbic brain, and they are just following their appetites, their impulse for self-preservation, their impulse for procreation, their impulse for attainment. They just are following their impulses, and they're not living circumspectly, and therefore they are going to receive as the wages of wrong. They're going to suffer wrong because of that, and he talks about the way that following their impulses expresses itself in greed, in adultery, in deceiving others who are unstable. They can be very persuasive to people who don't stop and think, and who do not exercise in themselves their own self-awareness. And he talks about Balaam. We have so many connections to the Moabites. I don't know why, but we do in this chapter. And the Moabite king, of course, paid Balaam to prophesy, a prophet of God, to prophesy against the children of Israel. He was on his way to do that when his donkey, smashed his foot against the wall and then talked to him and told him and asked him, "What are you doing?" You can find this story in the book of Numbers, chapter 22. And so we begin with unreasoning animals. We end with unreasoning animals in this tight little package of thought that we have, comparing and contrasting a life that's lived thoughtfully and a life that's lived in obedience to your impulses. And these false teachers it's evident that they are following not their thoughts, not their self-awareness, but their appetites and their impulses. We'll pick up with verse 17 next time. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word.